Okay, well, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to look at how we can do a couple important essential operations related to allowing the user to see what's on your computer screen, as well as be able to enter information through your computer's keyboard. And we're going to do this using two essential functions that we're going to see repeatedly throughout the semester that are absolutely essential, and that's the printf and scanf functions. Okay, printf and scanf functions are absolutely essential, and we'll use those throughout the semester. So when we look at those functions, well, what are they doing, right? Well, let's think about you as the user. Your primary way of being able to see some output from a computer program is actually through the computer screen. Okay, so let's imagine we have an old school desktop computer, just easier to draw. Okay. We've got an old school desktop computer here. All right. I know I'm a terrible artist, but bear with me. And we've got this computer desktop, and we've got our computer screen here. Okay. I'm going to call this screen the computer's console. Okay, the screen. Okay. And our primary way for being able to get information output from your computer's program is through displaying it on the screen. Okay, so we're going to do that through the printf function. Okay, well, more on that in a moment. Right, that's getting some output from your program. Okay, so we'll call this is the program's output. Okay, that is input into your brain through your visual system. Okay, and then we want to go the other direction too. So let's imagine our primary way in which we're going to enter information into our program is going to be through the keyboard here, right? Having the user type information, okay, to get it to our program, and we're going to do that through a function called scanf. Okay, and this is going to be the program's input. Okay, so we're able to do some interactivity using these combinations of things, being able to display information to the user as well as take information in. And again, we basically have these peripheral devices, the computer monitor and the keyboard, that's allowing us to do that, and they're all connected, right, to the program that's running. Effectively, it's running on your computer's CPU. You got your central processing unit, you've got your memory, that are all in this computer system, right? And then you have your monitor, which is your output device. Okay, and you've got a keyboard, okay, which is an input device. Okay. So we want to focus our attention in this video on being able to learn the basics of the printf and the scanf functions so that we can actually start interacting with our programs. This is going to allow us to start doing things that are much more interesting, where we can kind of build some examples that solve some real problems, and we can focus on programming logic and being able to implement something that is a little bit more realistic and interesting and practical. Okay. All right. So before we do that, though, I need to kind of get a little bit deeper into some background knowledge. And here I just want to introduce the concept of something called a format specifier. A format specifier. This has to do with the data type, okay, that we are either displaying or entering in. Okay, if I'm entering information into my computer's memory, right, or entering it into the computer system, I need to enter that information. It's going to belong to a certain data type. Okay, as well as I'm having information displayed, the computer needs to know what is that, how are we interpreting the information that we want to display. Effectively, we're going to use something like a format specifier, okay, that indicates how we want the information displayed to the user. Okay, and I'm going to just introduce just a couple right now. And we've kind of seen these a little bit before, but we want to kind of get a little deeper into using them. And that's the %d for integer and %c for character. Okay, so this is a little bit easier to illustrate in the context of an example. So let's look at a real program here. Okay, and I'm gonna start this real program somewhat in somewhat of a simple manner. I'm going to just have a variable x. We're going to have 5, and we're going to start with something that we've really kind of seen before. Displaying that value x to the screen. Okay. Now, keep in mind, here I have the format specifier, %d. That says I have a base 10, a decimal number, that I'm going to take the value of x here. I'm going to take that value of x, and I'm going to display that as a base 10 number in this location, replacing %d. Okay. Now, let me move this down so we can see things here. If I compile, okay, and then I run this program, okay, so it says x is 5, right? Replacing %d with the value of x. All right, now, that's not super interesting, but let me still build on this a little bit. Maybe I have y, another variable that's named y. I can string these together. I could also do something like this, where I'm now have 2 format specifiers. The value of x is going to replace that first one. The value of y is going to replace the second one. Okay. So I can compile and run that as well. And it's doing just what you would expect it to do. Okay. So now we can get a little bit deeper and say, well, what if we wanted to have this information read in from the user? Okay. We could do something along these lines, right? Maybe I'm going to ask the user to enter the value of x. And I'm going to do something called a scanf function here. And what scanf allows me to do is it allows me to get from the keyboard the user entering some information and putting that information into variable x. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing for y. Now, I'm initializing x to 0 to kind of illustrate a point. We're going to overwrite x, the value, with whatever the user enters from the keyboard. So effectively, if I make a comment here, okay, this is going to get the value of x from user. Okay, from the user. Okay. This line here just telling the user what they need to do. So I'll show you this just a moment. Okay. Maybe enter the value of y. And notice scanf works in a very similar way to printf. We're specifying here, we're saying this is the type of information we want to be entered. Okay, in this case, we're entering a base 10 integer. Okay, and we're going to store that result here for x, and we're going to also store the second one that the user enters in y. Okay, and I'm going to temporarily ask you to ignore why we have this ampersand here. Okay, but you do need it. I'll give you the very short answer now, just to but I don't want you to dwell on it until we get a little bit deeper into the material. Okay. The short answer is it's specifying the address in your computer's memory of where you're going to write the value that the user types in. That's what the ampersand refers to. However, you can kind of ignore that fact for now and just kind of remember that you do need it. We will have time later on in the class. We're going to go much deeper into using things like that and dealing with computer addresses. So maybe I want to do something like I just want to sum up those numbers now. and print out the sum. Okay. So what this is going to do, right, we're going to prompt the user to enter X. We're going to get that from the keyboard. We're going to prompt the user to enter Y. We're going to get that from the keyboard. Then we're going to just sum up the values, and it's going to print out the sum. Okay, so let me compile that. Okay, and I'm going to run that. Notice it says, I'll make it a little bigger. Down here, enter X, all right, if I do 6, right, and then if I do for Y, I do 5, we can see the sum is 11. Okay, so now the program is, it's interactive, and it's dependent on user input, which is really, in real life, right, you're getting information's coming in and out of the system. It's depending on what the user's doing or what data's coming in. Okay, this illustrated a couple points, what we've seen so far. Right, remember displaying information out from your computer program to the console, right? This output screen here is the console. We're doing that, displaying out to the console using printf. And if we're getting information in from the computer's keyboard or from the console into the program, okay, we're using scanf, okay? Remember that the format specifiers are really, really important. I'm not going to ask you to memorize those. You'll have a table to kind of help refresh them, right? You will memorize naturally the common ones, like for %d being base 10 integers, right? Let me show you another one, all right, which we did kind of look at before, but I think makes sense to see again, right? If I wanted to have the user enter some information here, right? Like, let's say we have a character. I'll just initialize it as a space. If I want the user to enter a character, and by the way, I intentionally put this extra space here for scanf. I won't go too deep into it now, but that has to do with the user entering white space potentially, like if there's a space before what they're entering for the character. It helps ignore that. I mean, it avoids a lot of problems that can come up, so I'm going to put that in there before the format specifier. And I'd ask you to do the same if you're getting character information from the user. It's a nice little trick to avoid problems. Now, let's prompt the user so that we tell them to enter a character. Okay. And the last thing I'm going to do here, right, is let's just print out what they entered. And notice I'm using %c for character. Okay. Compiled and running that. Enter a character. I'll write X. Okay, it says user entered X. All right. So there's the basics of printf and scanf. We'll be using those repeatedly throughout the semester, so it's good to make sure you've got those down. Excuse me, allergies. And we'll continue on looking at additional data types as we move forward throughout this material.